these kind of clips, and he just, flat out walks out of this debate in the first 10 minutes or something like that. I think that this is the. I've just clicked on YouTube, and this is the first video that came up, which is Andrew Wilson and that, what's his name, Matt Dillon Hunty. I've never really watched that guy. I've only seen him on these kind of clips, and he just, flat out walks out of this debate in the first 10 minutes or something like that. And I think this is the one that sort of propelled Andrew Wilson to sort of infamy on the internet.
Matt Dillahunty's a chump, dude.
He's like the Jaren, you know what I mean? Like he doesn't debate anyone, so I don't know. I just feel like that Matt Dillahunty guy is terrible in his debate structure and how he does it.
Yeah, it's more of like a support, like an atheist support line. It's like, if you're an atheist, we love you. If you're not, we're gonna mute you and talk over you and straw man you and kick you off the show. Say have a nice day.
Well, there was another one with that guy, that Matt, whatever his name is, with a Christian from, God, it's a long time ago. It's like 10 years ago or something like that. And I think the guy was from Canada, but, it was really fascinating. And obviously, he didn't walk out to that one. It lasted much longer. So
yeah, the side 10 Brutenbaker and Matt Dillahunty.
I can't remember the guy's name, but it was really good because
it's side 10 Brutenbaker.
Is that his name? Well,
yeah.
He played a lot of clips of Matt on his little podcast or radio show or whatever it was, because he's obviously got a phone-in show or something. And, it was showing the audience, look, this guy thinks he's a brain in a vat. And it just wanted him to make a truth claim. He's like, can you just make a truth claim right now? And he wouldn't do it. You know how you, Tora, always try and catch people out with that? Are you sure about that? So, yeah, he just wouldn't do it. He wouldn't do it. He's like, no, because there's nothing absolute in that worldview. So.
Is that absolutely true?
Are you sure about that?
How do you know that?
I'm sure.
Prove it.
Yeah, I mean, what it shows is if you don't, like you can be like neutral on some things, but if you don't ultimately ground, all contingent things in the necessary thing, then you're going to be reduced to like absurdity and not be able to make any truth claims whatsoever.
Yeah, everything is then subjective. That's the problem. You're saying there's no objective truth in the world, then everything's subjective.
All relative. That's why I did the format of the argument it's very simple. You set up a dichotomy, and then they like go and they talk, and then you just go, how do you know that? How do you know that? And then prove it, and then you're done. That's it. That's as simple as that, man. You only need 5 or 6 words.
For the 20th time, the problem is this works against the Christian presuppositional argument as well.
How do you know that?
Do we live in the God world? Do we live in the God world or not?
Do we live in the God world or not? Yes or no?
Yes.
How do you know that?
The direct divine revelation.
How do you know that?
How do I know divine revelation?
How do you know that you had direct divine revelation from God?
Because I knew that. I knew that I was going to interrupt you right there. You saw that? See how that happened?
You know that you have the same problem. We've been over this a million times. Like, it's a good apologetic trick and it works, like filter the atheists down this conversation tree where you can make them feel stupid. And that's all it is. Like Van Til said it. The purpose is not to convert the unbeliever, but to shut the mouth of the atheist. That's the entire purpose of presuppositionalism.
Yeah, and I mean, it's not even to shut the mouth of the atheists, it's actually to get them to engage, because that's how debates work. You know what I mean? It's like you basically are doing it for an audience, and after the atheist looks retarded, who's going to want to be an atheist? You know what I mean?
Well, I know, but it's just a rhetorical trick, says the guy who invented it, right? And so, like, you aren't trying to actually convert anyone. You're just trying to, like, make the atheist feel stupid. When in reality, you can ask the exact same questions of the Christian presuppositionalist, and they come to the same dead end that the atheist has.
Well,
That's
no,
not true. That's not true at all. I don't even really subscribe to that. I mean, you're talking about interpretation, Osko. I'm talking about the fact that we need an absolute thing outside of us. For morality, for instance, right? How do we know things are wrong?
I don't know. How do you know things are wrong?
Because there's an absolute standard outside of ourselves. That's how we know. How does
Does
a
that have-
child? How does a child know?
Well, that's just an assertion, but does that have
It's
to be
not
a
an
personal?
assertion. You can observe a child and see that it knows it's done something wrong.
No,
But why?
the fact that we require an absolute reference frame for morality outside of our personal interpretation of morality is just a claim, which, by the way, I agree with, but that you cannot prove.
yeah, but you
I mean,
know what the other side of that is. Like, if that doesn't exist, then I get to do whatever I want, right? So, like, that's definitely not the world we want to live in.
Well, yeah, the world we want to live in doesn't just because we want to live in a world doesn't mean we actually live in that world.
Wait, but just because it's logical and coherent and rational, doesn't mean it's the case.
Well, it depends on what you're trying to say. It's like I've got into this with you, I've got into this with Taylor. It's like if you're saying that this proves a personal God decided right and wrong, no, it doesn't prove that. Like if it proves that you can't really have a moral standard just conceptually outside of a greater metaphysical force, of course, yes, it proves that.
I guess it would be like, how would you know? Like, what if people were at one point not born with the moral code written on their heart, and then after an event happened in history, all of a sudden people had this moral code written on their heart, and you would look back at history and go, wow, there was a primitive nature to people before this Christ came, and then afterwards, all of a sudden, women got liberated. We got cars, we got planes, we got trains, we got automobiles, we got all this stuff. Like something happened, and what is that happened? What happened?
Jesus came down and saved us from our sin.
Yeah, and wrote the law on everyone's heart. So now we no longer have heathens running around. You know what I mean?
Well, we definitely have heathens, but my only point is that you can't prove any of that. Like you can like just say, "Oh, that story is a story I like and it makes sense to me," but you definitely can't prove it.
but
Well, yeah, that could.
this is why I interjected there, because I don't need that story to know that there's a creator, right? I don't need that at all. It's
Yeah, but
just it's self-evident,
when
right?
you say
Wait, listen. The fact that there's a psychopath, right? He's got no empathy. He's fucking completely broken, as far as I can see. What? How do I know that though? Right? What am I measuring it against?
when you say that there's a creator, what do you mean, Andy?
Well, we can logically deduce a creator, can't we? We can do it however you want, but to me, it's more an intrinsic. It's my intuition. I know it's the case.
He's
It's not a
assuming
belief.
there's some outside reality and something controls it, right?
No,
Yeah,
describe what that creator is. Are you saying it's a
I'd
personal
struggle to do
God?
that. I'd struggle to tell you what it is and what it thinks and what et cetera, et cetera. I'm not even telling you it's a man or a woman. I don't know. I don't know.
But are you
What's the
saying it's an
art? What's
individual? Are you saying are you saying it's something that thinks, that makes decisions, right? That has a personal conscious experience?
Yeah, well, that's the thing, isn't it? To me, the more labels that you throw onto that, in fact, any label whatsoever will be a barrier to the innermost truth. That's the way I look at it.
And Osko,
Right?
what would be the argument for your question? Like, why is that necessary? Why is that information necessary for you to understand there is a creator?
Again, it just depends on what you mean by creator, right? If you just mean like a metaphysical underlying nature of existence itself, yeah, I think that that's true, right? But if you mean there's a personal God up there saying, should I smite this person? Should I smite that person? Should I add this tree there? Should I do this? Is it wrong to still, or is it wrong to still like contemplating and ruminating and making a decision? Then I would say no, there's no reason to believe that that's religion.
Well, that to me, that's people creating God, not God creating people. That's the difference. That's just my impression of that anyway. Because well, duh, right? That makes sense. I mean, but the
I don't know,
innermost truth.
a lot of truth statements going on around here. I mean, what is it foundationally and fundamentally that allows you to, I don't know, claim that any of these particular facts within a context are facts at all? I mean, what is it? What is the relationship between these facts that you point to and them being facts at all?
Well, I didn't understand that.
Yeah, so you're saying, well, this is a fact, and that's a fact, and this is a consequence of that, and this and that and the third. I mean, what is it that makes a fact a fact? A true statement, a true statement.
Well,
and how
again,
are you able to perceive? You said you're able to just intuit it and perceive it in some way.
Yeah, to me, the only reason I could even do that is because there's a truth maker, right? Something to measure it against, basically.
Well, so these things that we find to be true, we find them to be true within a context, right? We get, like, if something stood alone, like in a platonic way, and you didn't have access to anything else around it, we wouldn't know if anything is true at all. So it's all true within a context that we can like kind of see around us and say, well, if I add the heat to the water, it boils, and it's true in that context. So what is the ultimate foundational thing that all these things depend on, and so that you can make sense of any of it?
Yeah, like I said, to me, all these things, logic, morality, it's
All right. Well,
just
All right. So what's your foundation for logic? Like, so logic, what does that even mean?
logos. What do you mean? What does it mean? You know what it means.
Well, as people throw it around, people throw it. You probably do know what it means, but people throw it around a lot. Like, they'll say, "Oh, this person has no logic." Like, I don't even know what that means. Sometimes.
To me, the only reason we can logic and reason is because of God. I have to wonder about that statement that Socrates said something like, he knows nothing, sort of thing. To me, I sort of think of that and think, well, what is he actually saying there? Because I honestly think he's saying I know nothing, because he's recognizing his own limitations is what he's doing. And he's saying, I know nothing without God. I think that's what he's saying, personally.
Yeah, because how would he know that? That he knows nothing.
That's the way I look at it, anyway. But then again, I suppose people will say, "Oh, you're just looking at it through your bias, though."
No, because it's a contradiction. It's like, the only thing I know is that I know nothing, so you know something. Even in that situation. So, like, what is it that, and the thing that, like, you're inferring, you're saying, well, the thing that he'd have to, the reasoning behind that reasoning is that in order to know anything, you'd have to know everything. But he knows one thing. He knows that he knows nothing. So then it must be in some way revealed to him by the thing that's necessary, the thing that is omniscient and knows all things, that he knows nothing. So that thing must exist now because he knows that he knows nothing.
Well, I look at it from the point of view like human beings and create and making things, right? We're pretty good at making stuff. You look around and we go, oh, some people think we've gone to space, etc., etc. We built this lovely building over here, and we're busy huffing our own farts or how good we are at building things. But really, we've not created anything.
Yeah, we are, but we are building things.
We're just shuffling materials around that were already here.
Well, what's required to even build things like would be that geometry must exist in some kind of ideal way. The material must exist, right? It must exist in an orderly way, and then in order to build anything, we have to put our mind to it. We have to put form to the material world. So if for the material, to move, for motion, for all these things to happen, it's either an interaction of chemical. A chemical, right? That's possible, that was always had that ability, or we can put it into motion with with our will.
I would say something's required prior to all that, and I would say that would be a foundation. You can't build anything without some sort of a foundation.
Agreed. Yeah. So that's the main question to like the I guess to the atheist is like, what is the fundamental, foundational, concrete, singular thing that all contingent facts and all contingent propositions or situations, buildings all depend on? What's that one singular concrete thing that all things depend on?
We say what grounds that? That's like what the question is often. But I do think there is a proper way. Sorry, go ahead. Am I breaking up?
No,
Did
he's trying so hard.
All right. Anyway, I do think there is a proper way to the statement. I know that I don't know, because it's going to sound like I'm repeating myself, but it's important to say it this way. The more I learn, the less I know. I think that's perfectly logical and coherent.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. It's speaking to like a greater context of like all things. Yeah.
Yeah, I completely agree. I would just say, like, my primary contention is, like, yes, there has to be a foundation, like, to knowledge, to morality, to logic, so on and so forth. So, therefore, you are essentially saying there has to be a God. But when someone says there has to be a God, what most people mean by God is a person, an individual, right? A conscious, sentient individual making decisions about stuff. And I would say that we have no reason to believe that. It's just like the nature of existence itself.
Well, then how do we account for the metaphysical things such as, reason, logic, and even just starting there? Like, how do you account for?
You presuppose them. Those are all characteristics of the metaphysical nature of existence itself.
Presupposing is not justification, though.
I know, but like this is like the point that I brought up a million times is you have to do the exact same thing for your personal God, right? And so instead of saying, oh, the ultimate non-contingent force, right, is a personal being making decisions, right? I just say it's not a personal being making decisions. It's just what it is.
Yeah, and how do you know that? And where did you get that from? And where does that come from? And is there any evidence for that even being the case or even being possible to be true?
You can't have evidence for the ultimate fundamental metaphysical nature of reality because we exist primarily in physical reality right now. And so you just have to say, okay, what's the evidence? Does God intervene? Does God make decisions? Like, that's why I asked you the other day, and I've asked people a bunch of times, could God have made Earth, with the Rocky Mountains 1 inch further to, the east? Could God have made a different moral system? And then when you like hone in on any of those things, you realize God, even your God, didn't actually make those decisions. They're just fundamental to his nature. So he doesn't even have a personality in your worldview.
You have a big presupposition that you live in a physical world, right? How do you know that? How do you prove that? I mean, don't you have instances that seem non-physical in this physical world? Like sometimes you're thinking of someone and then they call you. You think that could be explained physically? How about consciousness? You think that could be explained like with a math equation or something in reality?
Well, no, but in my worldview, like materialism is a joke. Atomism is completely unfounded. Like I'm an idealist, right? So I think the fundamental nature of reality is consciousness itself, not materialism. But like my only point being that like the God that I put forward, which is a non-personal God, it's just the fundamental nature of reality, which is like a metaphysical laws, which have eternally existed. Yes, they face problems, but they face the exact same problems that any personal God faces. But they actually face less because, like, you don't have to justify their, reasonings for doing stuff. It is what it is.
Wait, that sounds contradictory though. Why would a non-personal God make persons?
Why wouldn't it?
because it's non-personal.
Yeah, like the thing that stuck. I mean, the thing that Oscar's. I won't like go too in. I'm not trying to get too into it, but the thing that just stuck out to me was that like efficient and sufficient cause. So it's like you know, if you have something and you create from that thing is always within it. Like you can't make something that didn't have that ability in it. So that kind of connects back to the like I can't make a if I take flour and I put it into a cake, it's going to have flour in it because it came from flour, kind of thing. So in that context, if you have personhood, then that the ultimate thing must contain that attribute.
So God can, in your worldview, God contained everything and then just reformed it. So everything always existed.
I don't know how long I got somebody at my door. I'm just saying the thing. If you have an effect, then there's a cause to that effect, and that cause contains the effect in it always, every single time.
Like, what decision did God make? Like, give me an example of a decision that God made in one of your guys' worldviews.
What decision did God make in our worldview? He decided to make the world.
Okay, so God decided to make the world. Could he have decided not to make the world?
No, that would be a contradiction of his character because you call him a creator. So then he wouldn't be a creator anymore, right?
Exactly. So it's just fundamental to his nature. So he had no actual decision to make. He just did what he was naturally doing. And so, like any decision that you look at, so-called decision that like God makes in your worldview, it wasn't actually a decision. It was just fundamental to his character. And I'm just saying all the stuff that you said, all the attributes that you attribute to God, I just attribute to the metaphysical nature of reality and admit, okay, he's not actually a person making decisions. He just is who he is.
That would mean there would have to be a separation between the metaphysical nature of reality and the physical nature of reality. And if all reality is consciousness, it's all metaphysical.
Yeah, physicality is an emergent property in my worldview.
Why though? Why would it even exist? Why would we even attribute a word like physicality to the world? And it's not that.
Because it seems that way. I mean, I don't know. It's just a word we made up to convince ourselves that matter is real.
Yeah, I know. That's the weird part to me. It doesn't seem that way. So I guess that's the difference.
The fact that we do that at all is telling, right?
I think it's sophistry, honestly.
Yeah, but do you not get my fundamental point that you can't name a decision that God made? Like God wasn't ever sitting up there saying like, should I put the Rocky Mountains here or should I put them 1 inch further to the east? He didn't make that decision. He just did what he did.
I don't even know if God made the Rocky Mountains.
Wait, I'm confused. You're saying physics as we know it. What are you saying? I'm not sure.
Who, me?
No, Torah.
What do you mean? Like, I don't believe there's a separation between the metaphysical and the physical.
Well, that's silly. I mean, you can describe things that happen, things we do, things we build, and like if I hit you with a metaphysical board, you may not feel it, but if I hit you with the physical board, you will feel it.
Yeah, metaphysically, I'll feel it. Like, there's some people that have trained their mind to enjoy that. So
No, not metaphysically, but you'll feel it. I promise.
What does that even mean? Feeling it? I mean, that seems like a metaphysical claim in itself.
Well, everybody knows what feeling it means. I mean, y'all. It sounds like y'all are being critical of words that are
No, I'm
developed
just saying, like
that
the
have
feel.
meaning
That, I mean,
purpose of
trying to bring up.
communicating.
Oh,
So we
you
know
just
what we're
brought up
talking
a
about.
metaphysical. You brought up a metaphysical concept, and you're like, "This is physical." Pain. Show me where pain exists. Where's
Yeah,
that at?
pain is not
Yeah.
metaphysical.
How,
We understand what pain is.
okay, how much does it weigh?
You've got a sensory system in your body that detects pressure, heat, uh, different things like that, and it's a defense mechanism that physically works to tell us about things that we're like. If you stick your hand in a boiling hot water, it's going to melt your
So it's
skin off.
now
You
it's
have
telling
pain
you.
receptors telling you stop doing that.
So the
Yeah, because
physical.
God, right?
There's hold on. There's have you ever heard of
Not
people when
God.
that hold on? There's people when they have like mind over matter. Have you ever heard of that concept?
Yeah, and defying and being able to tolerate and things like that. That doesn't change the fact that we have pain receptors and we
It just
understand how they
shows.
work.
It just shows, Left Lane, that pain is a metaphysical concept. You can't put it on a scale and weigh it. You can't tell me what the radius of pain is. You can't tell me like what the dimensions are of it. Therefore, it's a metaphysical concept that you just invoked in order to prove that we don't live in a metaphysical world.
I
True,
don't
true,
know. I
true.
don't know if it's
Yeah, I don't. That doesn't make sense at all to me.
Yeah, I
Yeah, it
don't know
makes
if it's
sense to
meta.
me.
I don't think it's metaphysical. It's definitely something you feel in your senses.
Yeah, it's an experience through a conscious being, which would be metaphysical. Like you can hit the tree is not going to say, "Ow, that hurt," and then you're going to say, then like Left Lane was saying that we understand it, which is another understanding is another metaphysical thing. Like through information, where's the information? We understand it, and then it communicates to us another metaphysical claim. Like we have an experience where we feel the physical world come in contact with our experience, and then we understand and interpret. I mean, these are all metaphysical
I
things
mean,
that are
I don't know.
required.
I don't know if you could say that the tree don't feel it. I mean, that's. I mean, you might not understand that the tree is actually feeling something.
That's
I
even
mean,
more
yeah.
that's even more metaphysical than any. That's exactly my point. So yeah, we're all metaphysical. The tree, you, everything.
Well, I mean,
No, dude,
it
you're
seems like
just
that.
redefining it. You're redefining the word is what you're doing.
No, it seems like those things like consciousness, experience, metaphysical claims are required primary to making any claims about the physical world. I mean, it just has to follow. I mean, unless somebody's going to claim that an unconscious, piece of material can interpret the world in some way. Yes, I mean, in my opinion, it goes back to the like each effect has it within it the cause. So if we have this world where we have persons and understanding and all these things that metaphysical primaries that are required to make sense of the world, and that the thing that's ultimate that all things depend on must have these attributes. So it wouldn't be far-fetched to say that the thing that's ultimate that all things depend on is conscious and personal to give us a context that we can make sense of things in the world. Seems like almost like common sense, reasonable, like intuitive that things that come from things contain in some part the essence of the thing that they come from. Yeah. So
Yeah, but I asked you what's the decision God made, and I don't think you made an answer. Torah responded to create the world, and I asked him, well, could he have decided not to create the world? And he said, no, it's part of his nature. So it wasn't actually a decision he made. So you're saying that this ultimate thing is, a personal individual being, but he doesn't appear to actually make any decisions. And so how can something be a personal individual being if they actually don't make a decision?
Well, like it's like that one's kind of tough in as far as like the way to describe it would be like, could God have failed to instantiate His will? And like the answer would be no. That God couldn't have failed to act because it's His will to act, just like it's our will to act. Like even when we say, I'm not going to do anything, that's the act of not doing anything. So God can't fail to act, just like you can't.
Yeah, but what decision did he ever make that he could have made a different decision? Like there's nothing that I could think of.
Yeah, I mean, if something was perfect, then if something was perfect in every single way, could it make an imperfect decision? I would say definitionally no. Yeah.
Yeah, so then why would you think that that's a personal being making decisions about stuff? There would be no reason to believe that because even what you're describing isn't a personal being making decision. He's just automatically makes decision based on his fundamental will, which he did not actually choose himself.
Yeah, but he made persons. So that makes him personal. That's like the definition. How are you defining personal? Like someone that associates with persons?
An individual having a conscious experience making decisions about something.
Oh, I don't know if that's the definition of personal.
Well, how would you describe personal? Like, I would just say,
I describe personal as interacting with a person.
Yeah, I mean that's why that's one of the reasons, Oscar, that like Christianity is found to be like uh, what do you call it? Congruent, I guess, with personhood. The three, the Father, Son, Holy Spirit, within a contained singular, three essence in one. In the beginning there was, Father, Son, Holy Spirit, so that there was a trilateral personhood of God. Yeah. So that's one of the reasons that Christianity is invoked as having that attribute, where others don't.
well, yeah, I mean, that's the reason why the Trinity is invoked, especially for like morality, because one individual can't have morality. So you have to have the Trinity for all of eternity for morality to exist for all of eternity. Like, I understand that point, but like the broader like thing that I'm trying to like portray here is that like even your God is not an individual making decisions. And so he's essentially just an algorithm, a code that he did not choose, that he did not write. It's just the same thing to me as just saying the fundamental nature of reality is this way. He's not intervening. He's not like making decisions. He's not saying, I like this person, I don't like this person. He's not like answering prayers. He's not doing any of that stuff. It's essentially just the metaphysical nature of reality.
Have you read The Legend of the Jews, Osko?
I haven't, no.
Oh, it's so interesting because they kind of take that form. Like the Torah was the AI, and then that it's like an algorithm and everything. Yeah, they kind of have that view. It's interesting.
Well, doesn't it kind of make sense?
Yeah, I mean, I don't see why that wouldn't be applicable to the God of the Bible, though. And I think that it's important for the three-person thing because the scripture itself says you have to have two witnesses for anything to be true. So it can't just be one, because then you couldn't make something true.
Yeah, like even to have an experience, even to have like a relationship with something, you need to have like you, the thing that you're, one thing, one dimension here and another dimension there. And you gotta have like you, the thing, and then the area that it's occurring within.
Yeah, but I could just be completely missing it. It could be going over my head, but I don't think like anyone's provided a refutation to my idea that like God is impersonal, that it's not an individual up there. Like, what am I missing here?
Oh, I thought I gave you a refutation to it with the definition of personal.
Okay, can you give it to me again?
To associate with persons.
So is my dog personal?
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Is so like last night I was reading Leaves of Grass. Is that book personal?
Well, the author is.
Okay, so the author is, right. So the author chose to write, in one way. So he said, I loaf and invite myself. He could have decided, I invite and loaf myself, right? He could have written that way. But the book itself, right? Uh, Walt Whitman's dead, so he couldn't have chose to write in any other way. Correct.
Well, maybe the book is personal. I don't know. I'm thinking about that. It interacts with persons, right?
Yeah, but I mean, the broader point is that God could not have chosen to do anything different than what he did. So he's not a conscious individual like the way that we think a conscious individual is.
Yeah, I don't sort of think of God in terms of decisions. That's us, you know what I mean? And even then, don't get me started on the free will thing because I'm not even sure we have that either. Just because I've been in situations where I'm like, I don't like this, I want to change this, and nothing. I'm suddenly hit with this awareness that nothing I do will change anything about this. I could make it worse, but it just seems to be happening around me.
But didn't you just invoke the idea of free will in order to to say it doesn't exist? You said, I don't think I have free will. How did you do that?
Yeah, I like I said, I get a bit. This is one of those subjects that I have to put down after a while because I think about it for a little bit and I'm like, I don't know. Is it the little things like what I'm going to have for dinner? Is it, is it just the big decisions that I don't have any control over whatsoever? So I don't know. I'm really going off a life experience with that one, Tora. To be honest, I haven't made my mind up on it. Is what I'm saying. But the polarity of mind is what I was pointing out in the first place, and I don't think God has that to me. Like God just does, it just is, right?
Yeah, that's
I'll
You don't
that's
need
what
to
I'm
describe it.
looking
think about
for.
Uh, Os- Osco, to your question, I'll describe it in the best way that I can find words to describe it because it's very difficult. But I do believe that there is God and the Son of God. And I believe God, even though everything I believe is physical here, because I don't separate the two, physical and non physical, okay? So God would be the non physical form. And then the Son of God would be the form that can interact with what we perceive to be physical. So then at that point, it's a requirement. It necessitates the Son of God to exist because otherwise, the immaterial, non physical God could not interact with the physical world. So that's why everything is said that it was created through Jesus. Everything was made through him. So basically, you've got God. He extends himself. He like duplicates himself, whatever you want to call it. And he calls that his son. And he gives his son the ability to manipulate and create, and he gives commandments to his son makes it the way he does, and then he goes, yep, that's good. And that's how I would see it all. And so yeah, I don't know if, but I, again, like when you say I don't think he's physical or something, to me I'm like, well, I don't even know how to comport that, because if all the physical is metaphysical, then everything is all that it is.
Yeah, so God the Father, right? Does he have will, self consciousness, and the ability to fill things? I just Googled personal God, and this is the AI characteristics given of a personal God.
Yeah, does God have a will? Yeah. An ability to fulfill things? Yes.
No, fill things and self consciousness. So does God the Father say, oh, I'm a God?
Yeah, he says I'm the only God.
Does he have desires, attributes, and characteristics of a person?
Yeah, yeah. Obviously it has to. Where else did all your desires and attributes come from?
You can't just say God has desires because I have desires. I don't really think that works.
Well, how do you know that?
I just said I don't think that works. So you're the one making the claim that the ultimate metaphysical nature of reality has to have an attribute that a person has, and I don't see any reason to believe that.
Well, if he's a personal God, he desires to be personal with you, no?
Yeah, well, that's what's in contention. Is he a personal God? And I would say he's more aligned with an algorithm, not a personal God making decisions about stuff.
And then I don't understand the existence of persons then. Why do persons exist?
You're roboting. I think you said, I don't understand the idea of persons, I think is what you said.
Sorry, yeah, I'm going from Wi-Fi to self-service. Yeah, I don't understand then in your worldview why persons exist,
Persons are just part of the metaphysical nature of reality, is what I would say.
but not a requirement for reality, for the metaphysical nature of reality.
Well, I don't know. In some sense, everything that exists must be a requirement in my worldview, I guess.
Because yeah, I was thinking like if there are no persons, does reality exist?
Yeah, I guess. I mean, I guess what I'm getting hung up on the most is that when someone says there's a personal God, at least in my interpretation of that, the God of the Bible, for example, right, the way he's like discussed and talked about is as if he's making decisions about stuff, as if he has feelings, if he's mad about this or he feels good about that. And so he's saying, man, like this is really bumming me out, so I'm going to change this thing. And what I'm saying is, there's no reason to believe that. It seems to me more apparent that the ultimate nature of reality is just doing what it does without like emotional involvement or decision making.
Okay, maybe I'll take a different approach then. Do you think that in order for you to become a personal person, that you have to be taught to become that? Like,
No.
did your parents teach you how to be personal?
Did my parents teach me to be an individual? Is that what you're saying?
Or like, yeah, in personal, like how to associate with other people and whatnot?
No,
Because like if you're not personal, they put you in the mental institute right now in society. You know what I mean? They call it antisocial and all these weird things, right?
yeah, okay, yeah, but look, I could have a conversation with you and have a personal connection with you. I could also have a conversation with an AI robot and have a personal connection with an AI robot. Do you think that's possible?
Yeah, I mean it would be yeah, it'd be yeah, so then you would be able to understand that God could be personal then, if that's the case, right?
No, but what I'm saying is when we talk about God, it's more akin to having a conversation. We're talking about an AI robot than it is like having a conversation with you.
Well, I've conceded to simulation theory because I think that fits within the scriptures. So I don't have an issue with if you want to perceive your God, like how in Talladega Nights, I like to picture my baby Jesus like in a tuxedo T-shirt. You know what I mean? Like that's all good, dude. Whatever helps you sleep at night. The bottom line is it's coherent, rational, and it gives you a worldview you can know things with.
Yeah, but in the Christian worldview, the God is emotional and making decisions about stuff and intervening, based on how he feels about something at a given moment in time. And what I'm saying, in
In
my
your in
understanding
your
of
life, in your life though, has that happened?
no,
Never had any like things that happened to you that you should have been dead, but you're still here.
I mean, it would be impossible to know that. But like, I mean, how would I even know that?
Well, like one time when I was a kid, I flipped my 1999 Ford Ranger all the way over back onto the wheels. Then I Googled that Ford Rangers were in a lawsuit because the roofs crush in like way too easily. And so they were actually like they were in a huge lawsuit over this, but Ford was like, well, the vehicle's not designed to be on its roof, so obviously they won it. But my roof didn't cave in on my 99 Ford Ranger. How'd that happen?
Are you saying God stopped it from happening?
I would think a guardian angel, yeah.
Do you have any evidence of that, or is it just a
I'm still
probabilistic
here
claim?
talking to you.
So you think if you were to flip that Ford Ranger a million times, every single time, just according to like naturalistic laws, it would have crushed in and kill you, but because God put his hand down or sent angels down, it stopped that from happening?
Well, how did they figure out that why did someone go all the way to court with a lawsuit that the tops of Ford Rangers or the roofs of them were easily collapsible?
Well, they could have been easily collapsible, but that doesn't mean they're going to collapse every single time, no matter what.
Yeah, of course, as long as God intervenes, right?
Or you just flip it in the exact right way and it like hits like the frame of the door first, so it doesn't collapse as much or something along those lines.
Okay,
I've
yeah, I
seen
guess you could
I've seen
put them
several
in.
cars rolled over multiple times where the cab is intact and no dents in it.
Amazing, yeah. And I'm saying I believe that there's a chance that there was a divine intervention in those scenarios to keep the people safe. How do you know it wasn't?
I've got no reason to think it was.
Okay, then you don't. Yeah, then you have. Wait, if you have no reason to think it was, you have no reason to think that there's a creator of this world who's protecting you when you consider what it took to bring you into this world.
Well, I could answer that briefly. Like the reason why there's no reason to believe that God protected you in that instance is because that would mean that He didn't protect everyone else in that instance. So, an all-loving God decided, oh, Tor is the one I want to save, but not the million babies being aborted every year or something like that.
Well, I mean, you're correct. I mean, what I did was a free will choice of mudding and driving like an idiot or whatever. And then I don't think God wants us to be aborting babies, but that's something that came a long time ago from the Watchers, according to the scripture. That's like,
I know,
you
but
know, like
if you're saying that God made the conscious decision to save your life in that moment, and he also has the ability to make the conscious decision to save anyone's life in any moment, but he decides not to, that means that every time that something horrific happens, like right now there's unknown amount of children kidnapped being tortured, right? And God's making the conscious decision not to magically make their captors fall asleep and like unroll the knot that's tying them together or something like that. God's
oh
allowing.
yeah, I hear what you're saying, but there's blessings when bad things happen too. Like for example, that story that Jeremy tells, the farmer's child breaks his leg, and you think that's a bad thing, but then it ends up the draft comes, and now that kid can't be drafted. You know what I mean? So it's very complex. It's a complex thing, a complex idea to just kind of sum up in a conversation that we're having. I don't think it's going to be possible to know. I have to know all the stipulations of the person that's thinking they're suffering, because that's another thing. I try to look at life in a matter that when good things are happening, you praise Yah. When bad things are happening, you praise Yah, because there's going to be a lesson or something that's going to come out of it that's going to be good for you in the end.
Yeah, so like a child is kidnapped and molested and tortured for their entire life, and you would say, "Praise Yah, something good's going to come out of this."
Yeah, definitely. What if that kid goes on to survive? The guy that was, doing that goes to jail, and then this person dedicates their life to being a detective and to find, and now since they're so well informed on what that situation looks like, they're able to suss out more child molesters in the future.
Yeah, or what if they finally get escaped, their captor goes to jail, and they are bitter at God and commit suicide, and they just go to hell.
Yeah, I don't see it like that at all. And this argument, like kids get cancer, it's fucking retarded. There's any argument against God. The fact is that
Well,
we do that. We do that usually. When you look at it, it's usually an environmental thing. So
It's,
that the suffering
well,
that
you're
comes
talking.
from that could point to the fact that we could, oh look, we're fucking doing this thing, or we stressing people out. There's a plethora of ways of which we cause cancer, and yet you want to say, well, kids get cancer, so God, he must
No,
be
that's
horrible.
Well,
not.
what?
You're missing the
No.
argument.
Andy, the thing is that. So, what is your response to it, though? Because the thing is if there's souls that exist that come in and everyone's kind of equal in a way, and then even the idea you get one life, if that horrible thing is happening to that child of having cancer, the question is, why would a loving God do that? It's not. I mean, I understand the toxins and stuff like that, but what is your explanation as to why that soul had to be, had to go through that?
Yeah,
Which seems completely unfair, as it were, if we all get a shot at life and one child doesn't even get a shot because he's got cancer at age 2.
what happened with their parents?
Well,
as
it's kind
as
of
you
a question to Andy. My question more is, Andy, what is your explanation for it?
Yeah, well, as you know, I mean, I don't typically subscribe to the Christian worldview, so I kind of see all is one. So nothing is lost. The small animal that gets eaten by the big animal becomes the big animal, sort of thing. So that's kind of the way I look at it. All is one. So yeah, I realize that the problem is that we put our emotions and our this, that, and the other on top of it, right? If you could take, I mean, if you could take that away, we wouldn't be human, I guess. But I'm just trying to say, if you did take that away, you would see the perfection of this place, absolute perfection.
Yeah,
We've got a perfect
horrible thing.
recycling system
Yeah, it's
that's
a
been
horrible.
set into motion.
Oh,
Yeah.
good. It's a horrible, terrible thing if a kid is getting cancer. But there's consequences. It's not the kid's fault, but the kid's going to pay for whatever if they were put in an unhealthy environment, next to power lines, or their parents were eating terrible food, or there's just poison in the water, or whatever. Cancer is just the effect of something causing it. So we got to, if it
Exactly.
wasn't, if we weren't trying to, fix trying to fix the bad stuff, the stuff that's causing the bad effects, we would just be living in this world, right, where the effects there would be no good or bad. It'd be this fantasy world where I hit you with a hammer and it feels good, and then I give you a hug and it feels just as good, and there'd be no differentiation, no good or bad, that we'd have to realign.
If you look at the back of that thing, if you look, because this is the problem, you see, we seem to find ourselves in a place where we deal with symptoms rather than going to the heart of the problem, the root. And I'm sure if you look to the root of most of that cancer in the world, there would be some greedy cunt who's done something to poison this or toxin that, or that's what
Yeah,
it'll point
but
to.
like the question sounds like almost like, why can't I just eat poison and it not hurt me, Andy? What kind of guy would make it so that poison and makes me poisoned? That's
No,
not
you
fair.
guys are missing my point entirely. I only brought up the child suffering, right? Because Torah said that God intervened and saved his life, right? So if God intervened and saved his life as like, I don't know, a young person mudding, maybe drunk or doing something stupid, right? And God decided to save his life, but he didn't decide to intervene and save the child being tortured's life, right? That means that God actually chose to make that child suffer or to be tortured or something like that. I'm not saying, oh, cancer exists, so God's fake.
I wasn't
guys,
drunk, by the way.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No, it's all good. I wasn't drunk. I was 16, first truck ever. Just driving because I've only driven video games before, so I thought that's the way it was in real life.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
mean, I don't even
being a
know the way
stupid
like
kid, and God decided to save you. But then you have innocent kids, who did
Maybe it's
nothing
because
wrong.
he saved me so I could save you.
Maybe that's a high possibility.
Yeah, it sounds like almost like when Torah says, "Well, God saved me." It's not the way you're framing it, Osko, is as if God stopped time, came in. Maybe that happened, right? But it sounds like it seemed like God had a purpose for me after all, and that wasn't my destiny wasn't to die right in that day. So
I know, but
somehow my life is worked into that plan in some kind of way that's ultimately going to work towards God's plan.
but if you accept that, what you're implicitly saying is all the horrific things is also God's plan.
Right.
Well, his plan was for us to have free will, and so you can't really have a world where the creatures that inhabit it have free will, and there's just like no suffering. That doesn't exist. So if you like having free will, you're gonna have to learn how to cope with it. And I don't mean this in a disrespectful way. I truly like healthy coping mechanisms. We all need them to deal with the suffering of this world, so that suffering builds us up rather than breaks us down.
Yeah, but Torah had free will as a stupid 16-year-old flipped his truck and should have died, but God saved him.
Well, from my perspective, there's only two like explanations for that. It's either God wills or God allows. That's divine providence. We'll never know whether it was God's will or simply Him allowing Torah to live. I mean, it's his opinion. No offense, Torah, but I mean, I think you'd agree with me. It's like it was either His will or His allowance. So it's like,
Yep.
go ahead,
This is
Andy.
sorry, dude. You got a lot of background noise in your mic, but it's good to hear from you, dude. I don't know what I was going to say now. I was going to say that when we get into these sort of type of discussions, which I love, but we've got I seem to align with Geo more when it comes to spirituality. I've noticed, whereas with hardcore Christians are here, which is fine. I love to hear from them too, but we get some like cross signals, and then I feel sorry for poor Osko because he's sort of he's debating two kinds of ideas about what God is essentially. But the one thing we can absolutely know about that situation with Torah is that he learned a bloody lesson from it, didn't he?
Yeah, I mean, listen, like the dichotomy sounds like it's coming off. I mean, this is how I'm interpreting it. It's either things happen for a reason, and there's a purpose, and there's a plan, and there's a reason that things happen, or there's not. And if there's no reason for things happening, no purpose, no plan, no reason for these things happening, then it's all just an illusion, and you would have no reason for even saying that.
Yeah, that's true. And remember, Osko, there's a lot of people who have misinformation, and that's why they're harming people. Satan harms people because he knows it hurts God. So when people are hurting God's children, should God just instantly start killing everyone off? Or do you think he's exhibiting patience for that person to change themselves?
Well, maybe
Because
he
if
has
God started
patience.
taking justice on everybody, probably a lot of people would be dead right now, and there would just lots of people dying continually if God was not patient.
Yeah, my only point is that if you're talking about an interventionist God, like a God who comes down and intervenes and gives miracles, that means all the horrific things, right? He's choosing not to intervene. So therefore, this like the same way he decided to save Torah is the exact same way that he decided to let the random person in some podunk town to be kidnapped and tortured
Right,
and
right. But they're
molested
not
there.
random. That's the thing. Yeah, that like I said it last time, right? It's just like, and then you asked me like, "Oh, you're a Christian, right?" But it's just like kind of like the misunderstanding of keeping like the faith, right? Like the faith in God, right? So the faith is just keeping to the, I guess, to the teaching that, or the understanding that all things happen for a reason, a plan, and a purpose, and that purpose and plan is ultimately grounded in God, and God is good. So even though we don't understand the plan, that we have a faith and a belief that it's ultimately there's a reason for that happening, and there's a plan for that happening. It's all working towards the greater good. That's like that's like keeping the faith. Now the thing that happens is that things that are but bad, like due to free will and due to whatever, right? They're just bad. They happen, and then people say, well, there can't be a reason that that's happening, and it can't be a good reason, and they try to rely on their own reasoning of what they know in a limited situation of how this could possibly be good, and then they lose their faith, and that's just the consequence of it. That's what goes down.
Yeah,
I think
seeing
So it's like to keep, so it's like to keep I just like to reiterate, like just to keep the faith is to keep the understanding that either things happen for a reason or a purpose or not, and if not, then there's no reason for me to even give a shit if that kid dies. But so by caring that that kid dies, I understand that there is a reason, a purpose, and a plan that is going to ultimately work out for the good, because that kid is just going to go to heaven anyway. But yeah.
yeah, and seeing all the problems around shouldn't be a reason to not believe in God. It should give you a better reason to believe in God and then run to God. Because remember, Jesus told us about what happened when he started to accept the tax collectors. The Jewish elders were like, well, they initially they hated the Jewish people that were helping the Romans because they were traitors. So when they saw Jesus uh, talking to them, they were like, "Oh, now he's hanging out with the tax collectors." And then Jesus told them a very important lesson. There was two people who went to God. One of them was, at least I wasn't the tax collector. And then the other person went to God and said, "God, I'm truly sorry for all the things I've ever done. Please forgive me." Right? Crying. Who do you think God showed mercy to? The one that was apologetic, right? So the same thing goes. Don't use all these problems in the world to think that there is no God. It should actually show you there is a God. Because
especially
if you look
God.
at the extreme evils that are taking place, and furthermore, lastly, thank you guys, it's the Christians that are literally taking the message that God gave us to try to stop all this evilness. It was the Christians who ended slavery, and now it's the Christians' duty to not only stop what's going on now and to save others. And thank you.
Yeah, the whole personal God thing is what I'm totally not sure of, Osko. So it's a good question. I'm glad you brought it up, because I really don't know. I mean, did that creative force, whatever it is, set this thing in motion and then just turn his back? Like, I don't know. I don't know. That seems to me like, I don't know. Like, what did Socrates talk about with the spirit or something like that? Not God per se, but there was some type of metaphysical something or other helping you in some way. Remember, I don't know if you've ever looked into that, but if that would still inadvertently be God, wouldn't it? It would still be God, even if it was some angel or some distant relative. I know some people believe that.
Well, I think
Like
he called
like
it your daemon, which is more or less, from my very limited understanding, just your higher self or your soul.
Yeah,
To
so
that
my
last question, though, I just want to, just so you know, I don't know if a lot of people on the second commandment, it literally says, "Don't make yourself an idol," and it says, "If you do, I Yahweh am a jealous God, visiting the iniquity of the fathers on their children to the third and fourth generation of those who hate me, but showing loving devotion to 1,000 generations of those who love me and keep my commandment." So it's like clear, like this God has obviously lined it all out. He's like, you don't follow this, you're screwed. You do follow it, you'll be living great. And it's not because it's just the way the world works. It's just that's the way it works. If you idolize money, if you idolize sex, I mean, don't we all agree those passions and desires lead to an unfulfilling lifestyle?
And war.
Certainly. And
Well,
if you
but
sorry,
that's the
Gaynor?
concept of choice, right? But you try to give the same concept to God that He has a choice as well.
Well, that's the argument that Osko brought up, that God has no choice other than to, abide by his own nature, in essence.
And
Similar to
that's
the
not
way
even a
that,
choice. That's not even a choice. That just is what it is, what I just read. It just is that way.
Well, you're telling me that I have a choice to give it up, putting myself in these sins or these pleasures?
Yeah, you do. You have the free will to make that choice. Yep.
yeah, you have the will to choose. Yeah, but you don't have the will to not choose. You don't have the option to not choose. If you choose to eat food, then you can either choose to eat food or choose to not eat food. You're going to make a choice. You always have to make a choice. Now you can either do your will, or you can or you'd have to be doing somebody else's will, right? And in order to, so you'd have to, and then you would be doing your will no matter what, right? So you either freely like do what I tell you, or do what God tells you, or not. Like what is that? What is that thing that's, that conscious, that our conscious, that's it's leading us and telling us what to do? Like, what is that? Like, that's communicating us to act in a certain way that's aligned with good or not. I mean, what is that personal thing that's acting on our heart and our conscience that's leading us one way or the other way? And why does it seem to like kind of show itself more in things like meditation or contemplation or silence?
I know for me, because I'm a pretty piss poor Christian, actually, when I think about it. I'm Christian light, the thing I criticize other people for. We're all hypocrites, aren't we? And
Hey, don't put that on me.
yeah, well, I was just thinking about praying. I very rarely do it, but I do occasionally, and I often think of it more of rather than some personal whatever it is. I think of it more as just like a positive thing. Like there's some, I can't really explain it very well, so I know I've tried before and failed, and I'll fail this time. There's a weird inside out thing that happens here, and so if you can humble yourself and sort of ask forgiveness, as that person just said, or even just be grateful. If you're just grateful, even if it's just for the little things, and you just say thank you for this, that's a really powerful thing, and it changes
Don't
your
you know?
state.
Don't you notice like the emotional change too? Like, no, I don't think like wait, maybe my wife, like if she did something terrible, could make me cry. But like, there's not anything in this world like a stranger or something that could really make me cry. When it gets really close to family, maybe that's a possibility. But I still even have a hard time displaying that emotion. However, when it comes to prayer and talking with God, for some reason that happens. You know what I mean? So to me, I'm like, well, this is like something outside of me because this is not like me to be this way. So that's what's interesting about it to me.
I can relate. Definitely when I start to think about what happened on the cross, it really touches a nerve. But definitely, I look at prayer as being in the battlefield, and when you have you can reach headquarters. That's essentially what the prayer is like, calling in headquarters.
Oh yeah, that's funny. I actually made that argument before to like this like hardcore atheists, and it was like kind of along the argument of like, do we create anything, or we just like somebody brought it up earlier again, like do we create anything, or do we just rearrange the things that are already possible, that are already existing, right? So then he said, well, we just arrange what's already there. We just put it into whatever's already possible, because by definition, if it's not possible, it's impossible. So I said, okay, do you believe in like Bluetooth and Wi-Fi communication? I said, yeah. I said, okay, so do we create that, or is that's always possible? Like it's just we're able to communicate through the air, like over distance. Is that all right? I said, yeah. It must have always been possible because we did it, obviously. I says, okay, yeah, great. Now you're saying that so we can communicate just through the airwaves, just through the Bluetooth, just through the Wi-Fi, within a system, indefinitely. Who knows? Like if we strengthen the signal, so then prayer exists. So then it is possible that if God exists, then He's communicating to you always, just like Wi-Fi or Bluetooth. I guess it would have to follow.
It's called the
Absolutely.
internal dialogue,
That's
not your
a that's
communication.
that's an
Yeah,
epic argument, dude.
Got him.
definitely. And Jesus gave us the exact method on how to pray, which is amazing. He didn't leave it out vague. He gave us a direct line.
What's that? Is that the Lord's Prayer specifically? Yeah.
Yeah.
We used. I mean, I'm old enough to remember we still had that in school, and
That's awesome.
yeah, but obviously not anymore. But I don't know why, but I like that. I like saying that, and it just makes me feel good. And even
No.
like when I feel like shit, it just makes me feel better for saying that. The alcoholics prayer. I've never been to a meeting. I'm not advocating for them, but I like the AA prayer too.
Yeah, I
Sure.
mean, not only was that, like, he gave instructions on how to address Abba, like dear Heavenly Father, all that. But one of the interesting parts is he said, you see other people, they do it out in public, like as if to be admonished or like as if to be praised, like, oh my goodness, this is such a prayerful person. He said, go into your room, close the door. So he's like, go into your secret place. You know what I mean? Which is huge because it's what you do behind closed doors that matters in this life.
Yes.
What about a
That's
closet?
it.
I think Lion's got a prayer closet. Does that count, or
I
is that
do.
like borderline?
I don't know. I don't know if you'll ever come out of the closet, Dysel. So I don't know.
To the cupboard. Who said anything about a cupboard?
But yeah, be in the spirit. Walk in the spirit daily, always. I don't think you necessarily have to physically pray in order to pray. I think if you're, in the proper state of mind and listening to that internal dialogue, I think that's a form of praying. I wouldn't say
Yeah.
that's completely praying, but I think it's very significant and important. Like just praying alone without walking the spirit is fruitless, right?
Yeah.
It's the combination of the
Correct.
two.
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw the perfect dialogue back and forth between an elder Muslim and a Christian. So initially, the Christian went to the mosque and he was just protesting outside, trying to get people to come to Jesus. And there was a young teenager. I think he was under 20. So they were having back and forth. So I think the Muslim asked the Christian, "Why do you pray?" Or it was vice versa. So when the Christian asked the Muslim, "Why do you pray?" The Muslim, the young kid, he didn't really answer, right? So the elder who was listening, he came up forward and he says, "We pray 5 times a day," and thought that was a mic drop, and then walked away. But the Christian response was like, "That's it? I pray when I wake up. I pray when I eat. I pray when I'm in the shower. I pray when I'm walking. I pray when I'm driving. I pray 1,000 times a day." And when he asked the youngster again, "Why do you pray to God?" The youngster didn't really have an answer, and then he turned it around. He went to the Christian, "Why do you pray?" And the Christian instantly said, "Because I love God."
Yeah, I think.
It's
I mean,
amazing.
yeah, no, good. Yeah, definitely a good one. But just like kind of to I feel like the reason we brought this up was because we were trying to understand why things like bad things happen, whatever, good things, bad things, what makes them good, what makes them bad, and then you have the option to like pray on it, right? So and like as a consequence, what happens in that situation is you're either going to rely like quickly, like real quick, like I'm gonna like just work it out in my head. You're going to rely on your own understanding and your own reasoning. But then when you pray, you're trying to give up your own understanding and reasoning, and you're hoping that the thing that gives purpose to the world somehow communicates to you like a sense of peace and understanding that this is beyond your understanding, or maybe gives you the reason or whatever, just gives you the answer that you're looking for. But yeah, so you're either gonna, I mean, just as a consequence, you're either gonna, I mean, it's almost impossible, in like real quickly, right, to not rely on your own understanding. But yeah, you got to give that up if you're gonna look for like the, absolute, like foundation for things, because we don't, unless we can't, we're not the absolute foundation for things. But if that ultimate foundational, concrete, singular thing has a way to communicate to you an understanding, then you can know something to be the case, and that would
Yes.
that would require a God that's necessarily personal.
Someone try mic check.
Oh, you
We
sound
sound
good.
I thought I heard someone say test.
Yeah, it's good. You're good.
Word. I mean, you guys know me. I'm a Christian. I love Jesus as much as the next guy, but I did want to just kind of share with everybody that I've noticed that the discussions have been heavily revolved around Christianity lately. I think it's great, but we do have some members of the server that I think would appreciate a little more diversity of topic. I'm not saying to change the topic right now. I'm actually about to get off right here, but I did just want to gently and lovingly encourage a diverse group of topics. And yeah, just this is actually mainly just to my Christian brothers and sisters. Just remember, like, yeah, I hope that didn't
Yeah,
come off
yeah.
weird.
No, be aware of your surroundings. I totally understand that. I kind of came in with that, and I guess it kind of got us on this topic because I was saying I thought it was interesting how the flat Earth globe debate is really a subset of another bigger debate, and I guess this would be that other bigger debate. You know what I mean?
Absolutely, yeah. No, I mean, I will never just discourage this topic. I would just only encourage sort of, God, I sound kind of like a woke person, but just like, yeah, inclusivity and diversity. But you guys get what I'm
how
trying
you
to
Get
say.
out of here, man. We're done with you.
Anyways,
DEI platypus.
yep. But anyways, you guys have a wonderful day. I'll be around a little bit later.
You too. Thank you.
Yeah, atheist lives matter, guys. Come on.
Definitely.
Well, I mean, yeah, I mean, but if Tor is able to convert everybody in the room to like be a Christian, where they can trust their senses and know things with 100% certainty, then we don't have to keep on guessing about this globe. You can either know it or not. You can